Is this legit? I'm Sophie, tech marketer and social scientist. When I'm not advising tech startups on their marketing strategies, I'm helping protect everyday folks from online threats.
I'm Chris, a marketer with a background in both agencies and tech companies.
This week on, is this legit?
Content is just going to be worse and dumber, and people will hate advertising more than they already do. All right, let's talk about fails, because there's a lot of that. Yes.
All right. Oh my God, so many, especially in the past 3 years.
Yes. Yeah. The launch of all of these big tools has brought a lot of gems out there.
Yeah. Starting 2025 with all the fails from the past 2 years. Amazing. Love it. All right. So some big failures.
So let's go to the very beginning.
So back in 2016, so it only lasted one day, but this is a story. Yeah, it lasted one day. It was live for one day, 24 hours.
Great. Well, it lasted.
Yeah, thanks, Microsoft. But yes, so back in 2016, this is another story of shipping too fast because, let's test. And it's no, let's make sure that we're not actually harming people. So
they tested, so they got their answer.
Yeah, what a mess. So the Microsoft chatbot Tay, I don't know. How do you pronounce that? I don't know. Tay, anyway, was basically, and we've seen that come up even now, was learning just very problematic views from some of its more extreme leaning users, racist and misogynist and other kinds of things. And it obviously learned very fast to be quite problematic. So it took 24 hours and it was gone.
Wasn't it that, do I remember correctly that they launched it on Twitter? And that's where it was using the data to learn and issue it already back then. Pre-Elon Twitter was already problematic.
I mean, it wasn't pre-Elon. Elon was on it. He just didn't own it.
Well, yeah. But I think that's where it is that a lot of the times it's the data that you train your model on. And if you take the general, what a lot of people are saying, this AI has biases. It's not because the AI has bias. It's because it was trained on data from
bias data.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it says more about us as a species.
If people want to learn a little bit about, bias data, Invisible Women, the book is amazing. It's a really, really good one to explain a little bit more about why your data set and what you base your products, what you base your research on, if you're actually looking at a teeny tiny segment of the population that you are missing a whole lot of information. So anyway, Invisible Women. But yeah, so that was, a big one that people still bring up sometimes, and it's been almost 10 years. Some other stories, let's see here. So few years ago, Sports Illustrated had some AI-generated articles with fake authors. The CEO was then fired.
What's the point of a magazine if it's all AI? I want to read people's hot takes on things.
Yes, it's cheaper. I don't know. But again, it's cheaper in the moment, but then you deal with the brand reputation. You deal with they had to fire the CEO and then get a new, that's expensive. I'm it's not cheaper. It's but we won't get caught. Yeah, you will. You're going to get caught. What else? Oh, OpenAI was using, that's a whole different situation with OpenAI, but we know have been using what is technically on the open internet, but really they've been using basically people's content to train their models without people's consent. But that's also such a new space in the law and legislation that it's not covered. What do you do with that? So that's being covered in court right now, and we'll figure it out eventually. How can we compensate people for their content? But they were accused of using Scarlett Johansson's voice to train their AI.
And that was even after Sam Altman had reached out to Scarlett Johansson.
Yes.
She had explicitly said no. And they
NDA.
Recreated something similar. And
they did it anyway. Yeah. They did it anyway for some conference or some demo or whatever it was.
Especially for marketing purposes.
Yes. 1,000,000% for marketing purposes because it's on the product.
Because it's not allowed. But
well, no, but still, like it was purely for demo, right? So purely for marketing.
And the whole idea was because they wanted to, if you've seen the movie Her, they wanted to recreate that moment of this like AI assistant that was voiced by Scarlett Johansson.
Yes. So that's, OpenAI mishaps among many others. Google, famously, was it last year or the previous year, was suggesting to people cook spaghetti with gasoline and adding glue to pizza.
I think it was 6 months ago.
I don't even know.
I feel, these stories just like are so rampant that it's...
Yeah. And a lot of the search recommendations and the AI generated search, I stopped using Google for search like even before then, because I don't want to bother with all of the we're talking about in the
page that is all like ads.
Well, there's ads, but we're talking about it for the drop shipping, like it's ads, but then there's the whole like shopping stuff. That's all like drop shipping stuff. And then now like a lot of the snippets. So for SEO people, like the snippets are basically like answering the question within the search engine without you having to click, right? So like what is or how to in steps, they would usually use answers either from Reddit or from other articles. And that was one of the things that SEO writers would be like, okay, if the thing that people are asking is what is, etc., then if you put that in your article and you answer, then you might be that first snippet. Well, instead of having the articles as the first snippet, then like Google just started generating the answers and they were just wrong. And it's like...
And stealing traffic from
well,
people.
Yes and no, because the thing is that if you're in the snippet, you're probably not going to get traffic because people read the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
But besides that, it's not like stealing traffic, like whatever. At that point, like I'm like, it is what it is, but it's giving wrong answers because it's not actually using.
Yeah, there's
like,
no
researched...
human like reading it.
No. And so, so that's, and I'm sure we're going to keep on seeing stuff from the search result AI generated crap. Okay. What else have we heard in the past year? We've had Toys R Us creating a really, really creepy brand video using OpenAI's Sora.
I saw it.
We've had Air Canada giving really, really bad information through their chatbot. Their chatbot basically doing a whole bunch of really like legally dubious claims and whatnot. McDonald's, oh dear goodness, trying to AFI their drive-through system and just making things really, really harder for the human.
Hundreds of McNuggets.
Yeah. Hundreds of McNuggets by mistake.
Look, if I only have to pay like the price of one nugget and I get hundreds, then that's a win for me as a consumer.
Yeah, but they stopped that. There's the whole like, okay, we're using machines to replace cashiers in groceries or even, fast foods or whatever. That's one use of like machines replacing people. To that extent, I don't mind so much. My Finnish is so shit. I don't necessarily want to speak to the cashier in Finnish. I rather just flip it in myself. But then using actual AI to automate the actual important part of making the ice cream without putting bacon in it, like, come on. McDonald's. I don't want bacon in my ice cream. No, thank you. And so those are others that we've been hearing. And so some of them are like the more like advertising marketing mistakes, but others are more like customer experience or go to market mistakes. We're putting out products way too early, advertising products as, Gen AI or whatever it is, but then ultimately it's not. Or so there's a lot of those kinds of, tagging AI on top of stuff that it doesn't, or
I think you mentioned Sora already, but also Coca-Cola, they recently recreated their like legendary Christmas ad. The holidays are coming. And it was made with AI. And I think it's like funny or interesting how both, I guess, like Toys R Us, they were like, look at us innovating, using AI to do this thing. And it's so bizarre to me to have these like brands or advertising campaigns that are so deeply emotional, this like Christmas ad. I think this is a little bit more than Coca-Cola. For many people, it is like I remember it from my childhood, and it was like a very special ad. Did it make me drink more Coca-Cola? Probably not, but it was great for the brand. And now they've recreated with with AI, and it kind of like takes away everything that was so special about it. And I know that their creative director, whoever CMO wants to say that we're so innovative, we're using new tech, but like, I don't want to see this new tech in something that should feel real and special. Same thing with like Toys R Us. I don't want to see like fake AI children in my advertisement. I want to see real kids playing with the real products that you have.
Bring back the 90s ads of kids playing with toys.
Oh my God, those were the best. I still remember some of these, like all the Barbie ads, the Robo dog, like Poochie or Meowchi, whatever they were. Like, what was the Furby?
Well, Furbies are back, but anyway, yeah.
Obsessed.
I don't know. We're not getting Furby in our house because I used to have it as a kid. It was so creepy. Anywho, but yeah, so there's been a lot of these little mishaps and whatnot. But going on to some more challenges that comes with using AI in marketing. So we've mentioned a few things, but let's look at them in terms of, actual in context stories. So data privacy and security, something that marketers don't think about or don't like to think about.
We're not legal, and legal is just cock blocking marketing, right? Sorry. Budget blocking.
But yeah, so, we don't like to think about things, but like, data privacy or related issues, but we have GDPR, we have other kinds of things that are forcing us to think about that. And it is really kind of important to think of those. And so, yeah, a few years ago, Facebook's AI system accidentally, I don't know, they're not paying a lot of attention to their security, but anyway, accidentally exposed private marketing data of over 100,000 advertisers. So campaign details, customer information.
Can't blame that on Cambridge Analytica anymore.
No, they know better now. But this was only like, a year or so ago. So we want to make sure that we're not getting data breaches or privacy compliance or even customer trust issues. And so it's like, this comes back to where is the use of AI in your product? And people want to know more and more, like, are you using our data to train a model? And so, for example, I was saying that I'm using Woodpecker for not meeting charts, but meeting notes. They are very specific because you can like talk to Woodpecker as well and ask like, hey, from the transcript, like, can you give me, I'm looking for this or that. And they very specifically at the bottom say, your transcripts are not being used to train our model. Right. And so obviously it's a thing that people think about. Are you using my private conversations? No. Okay, then I want to use you rather than whoever else, because I don't want all of these things to necessarily be used to train your like, what if they have a data breach?
Yeah. Our company has very strict policies as well. And like whenever we try to onboard a new product, like an AI tool, then it has to go through legal. They have to check all the terms and conditions. And we've had products blocked because of that, because the company would not budge on not using data.
Other issues comes with quality control. So we're getting very generic content, off-brand, translation errors, word generation, like text generation errors. It's like, please rewrite this in a table format. And you're like, those were not the same words. I just wanted it in bullet points. Like, how can you make this mistake, right? So
hallucinations.
Hallucinations. Even though you're like, only use this material, it still doesn't listen to you, right? So a few years ago, AI had a AI-generated fake moon photos that obviously were not very authentic, really hurt the brand trust in that way. But it's not like there's so many of these now that people kind of forget very quickly because, again, they're happening so often. These huge brands are like, let's use AI generated. And then it's like, oh, this was terrible. And it breaks the trust, sure, but I don't think it, hurts their stock value necessarily. Implementation. You were talking about, having to go through legal and security to actually look through stuff. And so the actual cost of implementing AI tools, integrations and training people and the expertise you need, those are really expensive. In 2023, Coke's AI marketing implementation cost over $1 million and took 8 months longer than planned to integrate.
Well, hopefully they did it properly with all of that.
They did not. We saw the ad. This is Coca-Cola. We saw the ad that came out.
Well, it was bad, but at least they probably covered all the legal and implementation.
They did. It happened.
The output, the creative is subjective. Maybe if their CMO signed it off, then for them, it was great.
Yeah, I guess. But I guess my whole point is like, it costs a ton to integrate. You have all these different costs and, it takes forever. But then what you still get is this shit. I'm like, 8 months more, $1 million. You could have paid actual humans to do it way better. Was it worth it? I don't know. Anyway, another challenge that we see is performance limitations, right? So it has a hard time with context. It misses, the whole bias we're talking about. It's missing the cultural sensitivities. It has obviously creativity limits because it can only learn from what's already been done. It can't really like create something truly new. And the bias is just like, it's so strong, right? So again, we're talking about, Microsoft's AI chatbot was producing incorrect product information for ads. So this was the AI generated ads for their customers that they were like, basically like Bing, right? So like Google. So they were supposed to be using material for ads to help advertisers create their ads, and it was just false. And so then Microsoft had to like compensate them because their AI was like inventing stuff about their customers' products that they were advertising. Other issues that we're seeing is dependency. So then we start getting stuck into, we have a, ChatGPT Pro, and then we're stuck with it because then the whole company is using it and all of their knowledge database is now there and it hasn't been moved. You take it away and then suddenly you're stuck because you're like I can't function now without it because all of my information that I've been using to build these marketing campaigns and whatnot is there. So that over-reliance is really, really like problematic. And then what do? You can't change. Because if you change, you're telling how many hundreds of people, like, take all of your stuff out because we're going to change vendors. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there like an export and import feature on all of these models?
Some do, but I don't know. So Brain Labs lost access to really important campaign data in 2023 because their AI vendor went bankrupt. And of course, like everybody's creating this new AI tool. What if they just go out of business? Suddenly you don't have anything anymore. Right? So like OpenAI might actually like disappear at one point. Who knows? Right? It could be this year. Who knows? And then what do? Then you have to kind of like start over a lot of stuff. So again, like you want to be able to own your intellectual property. You want to be able to own your knowledge, like your corporate knowledge, and not just like having it sit in some AI chat somewhere. And I guess lastly, the major thing that people are seeing and that I guess ultimately marketers should think about the most is most likely the customer experience. Those odd answers that you get back, the communication issues that you're getting, the lack of, personal interaction.
So I guess that's like customer support.
Kind of, yeah. H&M's chatbot processed returns and customer complaints incorrectly for over 2,000 customers in Europe just in 1 year. Like, yeah, again, you can automate part of that process, but you need to have a human somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to end up with this crap.
I guess why I kind of brought up in situations of like customer support is that like the customer experience. The example I mentioned with Coke earlier, their Christmas campaign, was sometimes I do wonder, is it mostly marketers who care about like AI generated campaigns versus like an average consumer who doesn't really care about marketing or advertising? That was kind of like the feedback on the critique, that is it just marketers critiquing that this was made by AI versus like an average person wouldn't probably notice or care. So that's kind of where like customer experience, it's shit and it's shitification of marketing. But like, is it only marketers who care about that our messages are getting dumbed down and getting worse? Or yeah, I think there's like general audience that sometimes just generally doesn't like marketing because they don't like to be sold to. But if your content is getting worse and, then it's also just more salesy versus it being like actually interesting and intriguing. So maybe the customer experience getting worse in the future is that like our content is just going to be worse and dumber and people will hate advertising more than they already do.
Which you would think, it would be a hard thing to do to make it worse. But I guess that's where we are now.
Oh, yeah. Whenever you say. It's almost like a challenge, like, oh, it can't get any worse. But yeah.
Other than legit uses for marketing and those kinds of issues, do we have any literal scams?
Yes. Yeah. The big issue with AI is that it's obviously opening a whole new avenue for actual like scammers and using like AI for scammy marketing. I wouldn't even call it marketing. It's like literally just a scam. So something that I told Soph about, I think back in November, and sadly, I did not take any screen recording or screenshots, and that account is gone. I'm pretty sure there's others out there, but what happened is, and I documented that in a voice note. So I actually remember it quite like accurately. But essentially, there was a post that ended up in my For You page on TikTok, and it was a carousel post. So it was like static images, and it was kind of viral. It had like a lot of reactions, a lot of comments. So that's why it showed up in there. And I remember like going through it at this carousel, and it was this very like emotional story of a woman who divorced from her husband and how she went through a very bad, like depressive state. And she didn't know what her meaning in life was. And then she started taking all of these international exchange students in their house. And there were like these photos of her with these kids having dinners, going to like games and picnics. And as I scrolled through it, I initially thought like, oh, that's so cute. But then I looked at the comments, as I always do, and all of them said it was cute. But then I realized what this is. And I was like thinking, what are they talking about? And I scrolled through it again. And I realized that this is all AI generated. And one of the cards in there was mention of a supplement. I don't remember. I think it was niacinamide, which is great for skin, but it was a supplement ad. And then I went into this profile, and all of these posts were exactly the same format. They were carousels. All of them had like people. And when you started looking closer, you see that these people are not real. They're AI generated, because they're all of these like main characters on the photos. They're slightly different in every slide. And all of the carousels had one slide that were all pushing that same supplement. And of course, it's exploiting people's emotions and trust. So yeah, the entire account is gone now. So somebody flagged it probably, but I'm pretty sure there's more of these.
Those are so it's making it so much harder for the average consumer to tell, because obviously these people are really good at gaming the algorithm and understanding how it works. And it's like, I remember when I took my first ever marketing class, I don't remember like how many ages ago, and it was like the subliminal messages. Remember that?
Yes.
And now it's like, I already was like, I don't like this thing. What is this weird industry? I don't want subliminal messages. Like, I don't want to be part of that. And this is kind of where we are now, of like, okay, UGC, emotional stories, blah, blah, blah. And then like, maybe not even a mention of the brand we're trying to sell, the product, but like, it's kind of there, or it's, in the background, or the person's using it with the logo, and it's like weird ass product placement. But now they can actually do that with just generating all of it with AI. And so it's a lot easier
done really well.
Yeah, it's a lot easier even for like people trying to scam people into buying fake products, because they can create really, really good looking, like close enough. Yeah. Scary.
And speaking of UGCs, while I was trying to find that account that is now gone, I stumbled on a couple of other similar things. So there were street interviews. I'll put them up on our Instagram account, but you can see it there. So that video is completely generated by AI. And there are also these UGCs where a person is having this like talking head style video where they're just talking to their camera. And it's this, at least that brand, it was called arcads.ai. So all of these ads that they're creating, they're AI generated. They're actually really good. It's really hard to tell if it's real or not. And I would say that if this ad would pop up in my feed, like I would not be looking at like, oh, there's like something weird happening with this like element in the background. I would fall for that, most likely. My mom would 100% fall for that. And it's concerning. And when I was looking into that brand, if you're going to go back to our episodes we made about drop shippers, apparently that conversation of creating AI UGC videos is very prominent on the drop shipping subreddit. So, hey, a whole new avenue that we didn't cover back then, but honorable mention here. And yeah, I would say it's like very misleading for the audiences, because, they trust real people. And now we have these AI companies creating these, not AI companies, but also like the brands that are creating fake AI UGC. that is just misusing this trust. And also, of course, it's stealing somebody else's content and their likeness, because what are these AI models trained on? And I think as people start kind of like cracking down, like, hey, this is not real, I think there's going to be also like this mistrust in like actual UGC content. Like anyway, a lot of UGC creators, they're using, they're doing branded partnerships, but now you're kind of like, hey, is this a partnership or brand deal, or is this even a real person talking about this?
My prediction for like the future of this kind of stuff is that creators and brands are going to start actually marking like, this was not AI, like this was a real person.
Well, you can already tag AI created content, but like how many of these will actually?
But what I'm trying to say is that I'm predicting that people are going to start making it clear that if this is not an AI person, because I'm already seeing like text content with people being like, "This, I actually wrote this post. This was not an AI post." Yeah. And so I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, if like we're gonna start getting like, this partnership is with a real human very soon. Because again, if it's the opt-in of, well, we can put that it's AI generated, and Grammarly is one of those that they'll be like, hey, we've identified these like AI generated bits. You should credit that in your references, right? Which is a nice feature, of course, especially for like academia or whatnot. But I'm starting to think that in marketing, brands that want to really bank on that trust and that human factor are going to start saying like, actually, we don't use AI UGC. We only use real human, And so
I hate that all of this has come to us trying to like prove that, hey, I am a real human. Like, let me off of this planet.
Let's send all the AI. Yeah, can we just send the AI bots on Mars?
Exactly.
They can all live together there.
AI generated planet. Another thing that I kind of want to cover, and I've seen a lot of that, is AI like stolen influencer content and then using AI to put a fake voiceover over it as if this legitimate creator is promoting this XYZ brand from China. And I've also seen that they're sometimes putting like fake clothes on these like videos. I think that's what is impressive, is that they put their own dresses on top of whatever like clothes that the influencer was actually wearing in their video. So it's promoting that like product that they're selling. So I think that's really interesting.
This still comes down to kind of the stealing of intellectual property.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like crack down on that. But hey, yeah, let's talk about, I mean, there's a lot of concerning things. So let's talk about future of AI and marketing. Is there any like optimistic bits that we can look forward to, or feel like there's like great opportunities that AI offers to marketers?
I don't know. I feel like I'm maybe more on the pessimist side when it comes to the limits. And I still have very strong issues with a lot of the biases, a lot of the, stealing intellectual property, but also the environmental impact of actually having to run these models. Even the sustainability of the business model. Like, was it some woman who kind of joked, oh, we're losing money on GPT because people are using it more than we expected? Haha. Like, no, that's bad business. Like if you actually create something that costs so much that you're not even pricing it well enough, because they wouldn't be able to, like the whole discussion of why we don't compensate the people that we use the data to train the models is because it'd be too expensive. Well, then that's just bad business, isn't it? It's like saying we can't pay our people more than minimum wage because we'd go out of business. I'm like, then you should go out of business.
Then, yeah, you shouldn't have a business in that case.
And so...
like, how is that any different from like being a slave owner?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like, then you shouldn't do it. That's it. If the only way is stealing, then you don't. And so I think in terms of like, what are the possibilities? Yeah, there's going to be some possibilities, but we've talked about Ezitron, and I think he's also on the pessimist side as well. In that sense of like, if we like, some of them will go out of business, and some of the businesses very soon, I expect, will start limiting their use of AI because it's just not sustainable business-wise and also environmentally.
I guess what they're doing right now is kind of like what Uber did back in the days, right? Like it was really cheap because they wanted to have this like mass adoption. So they were subsidizing a lot of the, the rides were cheap because the company was paying for these rides, and now it's getting expensive and people are complaining, but like that's the real cost of this ride. And it's the same thing, like now you're paying maybe $20 per month for Chat GPT, but like what are the real costs? Like once we have this like mass adoption and people are more dependent on this model, maybe in a few years it's gonna be double or triple the price. And that's where it's like it's hard to kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's going to destroy some other industry like Uber did, right? Like taxis are harder to get now, or a lot of people are using like Uber to supplement their, salaries. So it's hard to like part ways with something that you're so used to using at that point. I want to be optimistic and positive, and, I do think that in many ways, like AI has helped me with ideation and efficiency. Maybe the models are going to get better, and like the chatbots with more data, with more training, they will not be as bad in, or hated as in customer service situations. Maybe they will help refine some creatives and, reduce advertising like waste in terms of like money. Hard to say. I'm in the similar boat with you, is that I think a lot of these are like very unsustainable. We have our ethical issues, and I would love to see how these are going to get solved, because again, I don't think a lot of marketers think about like where is this output coming from? What was this data? What was the base data used for this output? As soon as there's ethical issues and eventually there's going to be like some solution for that, maybe the output is going to get worse. Maybe it's going to get more expensive and not as accessible, like to use AI for many of these things. So let's see. I'm also obviously, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's not good for young advertisers and marketers to be so overly reliant on AI and not know how they arrived at a certain output, like why. And it's obviously, enshittification of marketing at the end of the day, where marketing is so prevalent everywhere. It's enshittification of our environments. And of course, the environmental impact, which is something that I really want to talk about, because I do believe that it's not talked about enough. And obviously, it's expensive to have it. And there's another cost, which is the carbon footprint of AI training models. I stumbled on a very concerning article from Fast Company. So it was a study done by Caltech and UC Riverside scientists. We can also link the actual article and the actual research paper into our show notes. But essentially what they were saying is that the carbon footprint of AI models will surpass emissions from all cars in California by 2030. And 2030, mind you, is not somewhere far away in the future, because that's how I always think about things, like 2030, 2050. Like that's all far away. No, that's in 5 years. We're in 2025. 2030 is in 5 years. So with the growing adoption of large language models such as, ChatGPT, the enormous environmental footprint of AI is increasingly in the news. And these large AI models require immense computational power. So they're often running on data centers that consume vast amounts of electricity, and which also all require, these massive like cooling tanks, like water tanks and everything. So all of that is being like already built. And I believe I read an article in Virginia. I think there's a couple of other really insightful episodes on Tech Won't Save Us about like the environmental impact and like where these, cooling centers are being built. But yeah, we need to start thinking about the electricity consumed, the carbon released into the atmosphere, and water needed to operate these massive data centers. The cooling systems alone in these data centers, they contribute significantly to carbon emission. And the scientists from this paper, they calculated that the emissions from training a large language model at the scale of Meta's Llama 3.1 that was released in July. So they found that generating the electricity needed to train this model produced an air pollution equivalent of more than 10,000 trips by car between LA and New York City.
So there's been, not necessarily in the mainstream news, but, we live in a northern country, and what they're doing now is they're building the data centers in northern countries because the climate is colder. So
yeah, LA fires. Hello.
Right? But we're in Finland and they're building a ton of data centers like really close by actually. And they're building them also elsewhere in Finland. They've been building them in Ireland and now like the government has been pushing back, but they're building them here. Right. And so, we love our lovely clean water. We love our lovely clean air. And yet you should see how big, I should show you, like you should see how big they are. They're going to be humongous, these data centers in Finland. And sure, like you have the plus side of, okay, it's going to create jobs. Right now, there's like blue collar jobs being created. People are building them. Okay. Construction, great. And then eventually you're also going to get some tech jobs in the area. Okay, great. But environmentally, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't see necessarily, maybe I'm just not, maybe I'm too short-sighted, but I'm not sure about what it's going to necessarily do to these countries that right now are quite nice and happy and clean. And now we're getting these humongous data centers that are coming in.
Yeah, like for example, the impact of these data centers. So the same study that I quoted earlier, they're saying that the air pollution from AI is expected to result in as many as 1,300 premature deaths per year by 2030 in the US. So that's in 5 years, every year there's at least like 1,300 premature deaths just because of that alone. Times 5, like that's, what was it, 7,000, 8,000 people just dying in the next 5 years because of AI. If you have family members with asthma or other health conditions, the air pollution from these data centers could be affecting them right now. And also, it's not just about people dying. The total public health costs from cancers, asthma, and other diseases, as well as from missed work and school days, are approaching an estimated $20 billion per year. And of course, air pollution stemming from these AI related buildings and projects is disproportionately affecting low-income communities, partly because of their proximity to power plants or backup generators at the data processing centers. And additionally, of course, the pollution drifts across county and state lines, creating health implications on communities far and wide. And yes, it is concerning. And I think it's also concerning for people who are, having children now or planning to have children in the next 5 years, because look at what is happening in LA right now. Like half of LA has burnt down because of the drought. Like the climate is changing already, and what we are doing right now, we're creating ad copy or creating our shopping grocery lists in AI. That is all coming at a cost. Yes, your child that maybe is gonna be born in next 5 years or whatnot, they will have a significantly different life by the age of 20 because of how fast the climate is changing right now.
And we already had those issues before, where I think as consumers, we're starting to see the light with the whole fast fashion, unsustainable direction that was going. And so it's still an issue. There's still plenty of fast fashion, but I think in plenty of circles, people have now come to grips with okay, this is a problem, but how long is it going to take for us to fix that? And now we have another issue that now we're hearing the AI leadership saying oh, well, AI is going to fix our sustainability issues later. And it's no.
By destroying the environment first.
Yeah. So how about we just prevent? But anyway, so I think hopefully people start talking about that more.
Yeah, the AI companies, they need to be held accountable for both environmental and public health impacts. Are there any AI tools that actually impact or emphasize their energy efficiency?
I think the more I've heard those more okay, it used this much power to run this thing or whatnot. And so I think there's a little bit of discussion there, but definitely not enough. It's almost like having to put things into concrete perspective. It's okay, every time you do a prompt, it's costing you're killing one tree or whatever it is. And it's almost it would have to be, and the company's never going to do that because they want people to use things more, I guess. I don't know. Although the subscription-based model, it doesn't matter. You want people to use it less because they pay monthly anyway. But if you pay per usage, then obviously you want people to use it more. But that would have to come from the government to say actually you'd have to put some kind of quantifiable, concrete context to use so that people can actually get it.
That is an interesting one. And I think that's kind of like the difference of like between EU and US, where oftentimes, a lot of tech companies are saying that EU is like putting a lot of like these blockers with all of their regulations, but these regulations are in place for a reason. And I think where US is heading, and that's a whole separate topic, but where the US is heading after Trump comes into the office and becomes the president, I would say that seeing how a lot of these tech companies are behaving, we have Mark Zuckerberg, that is, who's taking a very different stance now that it's, Republicans are coming into the office. I would say that he's becoming a little bit more Elon Musk, copy. Everyone is like doing their donations from Amazon to Meta to, even Tim Cook. Like everyone's donating to the president. So all of these tech companies, they're obviously doing that with their own agenda to not get blocked in whatever they're developing. So I don't think it's going to get any better, but ultimately it is up to the regulators to putting in place certain rules, whether it's limiting AI use in a way, putting some kind of like, as you said, like every time you run some kind of a prompt, it shows you like, hey, you used this much water. And like, I don't think a lot of people will realize or care, but just having that data, like this transparency would be like helpful. I think what we as consumers immediately can do is just understanding and maybe limiting our AI use. And like, look, it's good for your own brain, like to use it sometimes once in a while. But also like when you think about it, like you can do your own grocery list. Like you don't need AI to put your grocery list together for the weeks. I know it's hard, but I would encourage everyone, just because we don't even know how long this AI thing will be lasting for, use your own brain. It's not that hard. We've been doing it for centuries. We can do it.
Yeah. I mean, limiting it in certain ways. Okay. So rapid fire, speed round.
Yes.
Is
what's overhyped and what's legit?
So is this use case legit or not?
All right. So what do you think? AI for generating blog posts?
No, middle ground. So, but wait. So AI for generating blog posts, like fully, no. Halfway, sure.
AI as a creative director?
No. Did I say that fast enough? No.
Yeah, fast enough, yes. AI chatbots for customer service?
Like up to 80%.
Fair. Predictive analytics for ad targeting?
No.
You can't trust them.
No, not AI. Like machine learning, sure, but AI, no.
AI-powered email subject lines?
Yeah, sure. Like 90%, and then like 10% edited by a human.
AI-generated influencer partner?
No. Sorry, you didn't even finish. No.
AI written video scripts?
50%. I don't know. I come from the world of video. Like, no, I mean, 80%. No, 50%. Like halfway. Like create the ugly first draft.
AI and market research?
No, you forgot one. AI UGC. What do you think AI UGC?
Well, we kind of talked about it.
No, but what about you?
AI UGC, if it's fully AI generated UGC people, no.
Because see, partnerships is different than content. See, that's what I see.
Yes.
So there's actual partnerships, but then there's the actual content.
No, AI content, no.
Yeah. Okay, market research, no. What about you? No, but like I'm answering all of these, but you can also give your opinion.
Yeah, AI and market research, no, because what are you doing? Like just accumulating data? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
No. AI-driven social media trend prediction. I guess I can say that, but no, because as I mentioned earlier, you should be there chronically online, unfortunately, to understand what's a trend and what is not. Like by the time the AI, whatever tool catches it, it's gone. All right. So for you, AI-generated logos and branding.
No. Again, I think this is a situation of if there are skills that you don't have yet or that you haven't fine-tuned, then sure. Things like, you might not know how to create a vector illustration and you need it for a logo, then you can use AI to help create that. Or if you're looking for different variations to guide you, then yeah. So when it comes to like choosing color palettes or choosing font pairings, then you can use some AI generated versions. Although I have to say, like, there are still ways to do that. Like I'll font pairings, I just use like a lot of the foundries that make them, the fonts, they will give you like, oh, these fonts go well together. Like, there we go, done. You don't need to actually like AI generate it, right? Same for color palettes. Like there are plenty of tools that don't use AI that can just like generate you like an actual color wheel based palette to actually get something. So you don't need to create it from scratch. So I'd say like mostly no, but maybe to like supplement some skills that are a bit too technical.
Definitely not a logo. All right. We had a large variety of topics that we covered. AI and marketing. It kind of went all over the place, you know, from AI created advertising videos to data breaches to environmental issues. So final thoughts, is AI and marketing legit?
That if I have to go, you know, yes or no, I'm going to say no.
Although you use it every day.
Yeah. I would happily stop using it if it meant that I didn't have to see more like AI trash all over.
I love that. Like same. I would say that if AI would cease to exist as of tomorrow's Monday, I come to work, there's no AI, I would survive. Because I have been doing this job without AI and I know what to do. And yeah, maybe it's going to slow me down a little bit, but hey, maybe we should all slow down a little bit and put a little bit more thought behind of what we're putting out into the world. If no AI means that, as you said, there's less AI slop, there's less people being cocky and like, hey, I created 1,000 ad variants with AI in 5 seconds, then please, yes, I would love less of that, but I will still continue using it while I can.
No, for sure. I think like
I'm not a tech Luddite, like, right? Like I'm going to continue using it.
Yeah. I think ultimately, like, yeah, there is some use for it. But if I had to sacrifice my own, you know, little comfort so that I wouldn't have to see more AI scams and really bad AI content, then I would gladly do it, is basically it.
I would also do it. I would also quit AI just to save the world. Like, yeah, I look, I'm planning to live here for the next 5 years. And if it's already looking that bad in the next 5 years, like it's gonna, what am I, like I'm 32. I'm probably gonna live until my like 70s, at least 80s. Like I want my next 50 years of my life to actually be on a planet that is habitable, right? You know, clean air, clean water. So yeah, it's looking bleak. But yeah, AI, obviously we're using it, but probably if there would be no AI, would be fine. Marketing would be fine. So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and any thoughts that you have, any comments on your AI experience or recommendations or suggestions for new episodes, please leave them at
isthislegitpod.com and sign up for our send out every time there's a new episode. If you want to be on our mailing list, sign up. We will send you the episode as soon as it's out on Sundays. So please drop us a line and give us your comments. And see you next week.
See you next week.
Dear listeners, please note that the views and opinions in this episode, like all episodes of Like Is This Legit, do not reflect the official position of the podcast and are the hosts and guests' subjective opinions and quoted allegations. The content from each episode of Like Is This Legit should not be taken for indisputable fact and should be viewed as an educational starting point for listeners. All content shared by our hosts, guests, and sponsors are their own opinions and are not meant to defame or misrepresent any business, group, organization, individual, anyone, or anything. Just don't scam people. Okay? Okay.